You look so exotic.
You don't look like you're from there. Where are your parents from?
Why don't you look like your parents?
But where are you really from?
What are you?
What are you?
What are you? What are you?
What are you?
What are you?
Words so familiar yet sharp, like the pain in the side after running a mile on a full stomach, like an old pocket knife, handle worn smooth in your hand, but still drawing blood after all these years. Well, I say, but already you are gone, turned on your heels, retreating to safe spaces. This is not what you wanted. You want a one-word answer, but friend, this is not a one-word story.
I feel like I became aware of my identity when I was in elementary school.
I was in elementary school.
Late elementary school, early middle school.
Probably in elementary school.
I remember in 3rd grade.
Then in 2nd grade.
When I was 9.
I wasn't like, oh my gosh, what am I? But like kids were curious and they would compare their skin tones and talk about things like that, and I was like curious about myself.
So there's this whole joke that like the pinky finger is the Chinese middle finger.
We had this big group of friends who would all like, we were like a bunch of white kids, black kids, like Latino kids, and we would all get together.
I just like noticed that a lot of kids weren't Native American and that a lot of kids didn't know about it.
My 3rd grade teacher was talking about race, and we read a book or something, and she was white. She was like, my skin color isn't the same as someone like Abby's, for example.
When I moved here from South Africa, I started getting asked those questions like, what are you? Where are you actually from? Like, where were you born? Where are your parents from?
And that's when I started getting all of those questions. What are you? Those are not really your parents, stuff like that.
And that's kind of when I was like, oh, let me talk to my parents and figure out what the deal is.
I didn't really think about it until people started doing it to me, and they're like, oh, this is your middle finger. This is like, you're different. Like, I was just like, that's...
As we got older, people started making comments about it. Like, not just to me, but to like other people. And it was just, oh, it wasn't bad. It was just like making comments. I was like, oh wait, I'm not exactly like everyone else.
I was aware that my dad was Colombian and that I was also Native American and white. But probably up until middle school, I just thought I was white.
3rd grade me was shook. I was so shocked. I was like, I'm not white? What? Because I never thought of myself as being different than the rest of my classmates.
And so that was again sort of reinforcing this idea of me as a mixed race child having to go through this like long winding path of figuring out like who I was and like what I was made up of ethnically.
I've always identified as being black and white. I always knew that my parents or my dad was black, my mom was white. But I didn't really like think about what or why that was like unique or different until I came to the US.
So I never really realized that it was me being Chinese was something really different.
And then I realized, oh no, like I'm a little bit different.
And not all my classmates were white, but I didn't consider myself like not white or not normal. So then I became like aware, like, oh, I guess I'm tan. I guess that's different than other people.
And I didn't really think about it much until kind of in high school when those conversations became more prevalent.
But I've become a lot more aware of my racial identity in the past years.
I think growing up, I didn't really see myself as any other race. I don't think I thought I was white. I just thought I was like, oh, I'm just me, you know? And then I think it's really made the past, especially like 4 years in high school, just about me like trying to find my identity.
I don't think I've necessarily reached that point where I'm like 100% sure of everything having to do with my own identity, but I'm pretty comfortable with myself and my racial identity, and I think I learned it over time through like different experiences.
The teenage years, the past few years have been a huge time of like figuring out who I am and who I want to be and how I want to present myself to people.
It's always been a tug between feeling like I don't belong in either group and feeling like I belong in both groups.
Most people assume I'm white, so they're like, oh, you fit into the white category. And I sometimes feel like there's racial division within the magnet or even just within high school, so I don't always like know where I fit in.
I think, you know, in school, like kids, it sucks, but kids do kind of separate themselves into groups based on race, whether it's like conscious or unconscious. And so those kids that are mixed race just feel like, what group do I go to?
Being mixed race, definitely I've grown up feeling kind of in between. Sometimes I feel like I'm not Indian enough or not Jewish enough, and that's definitely contributed to some insecurities.
Even within my family, I feel a little bit of an outsider. Like at family gatherings with the Vietnamese side, I don't speak the language, and me and my sister are the only ones who don't know what's going on. We have to ask for translations with our family. So either side of the family, there's like a little bit of a divide.
I've been kind of struggling to identify with my other cultures, just because I guess I just tried to fit in with everyone else, kind of.
We always have these kinds of ideas of, or these conversations of people of different races trying to assimilate into white culture.
It would be helpful for race to be viewed less categorically.
To not emphasize the, oh, we're all the same, but actually appreciate the differences in race.
It's not always black and white. It's not always as obvious as people make it seem. You have to like talk about it from like a really informed, like inclusive perspective, not just like two sides.
There are a lot of intersections. There's also, you know, intersections with other aspects of identity that need to be incorporated. But in terms of mixed race, I think it's really important to include mixed race perspectives in any dialogue about race.
In talking about identity, I think it's really interesting because it's not just one box or one category. So it is sometimes hard to navigate that, and I think that has played a big part in me growing up.
The mixture of two different cultures entirely has definitely shaped how I am, and I feel like it's made me more well-rounded having such different cultures in my life.
You know, I can relate with a lot of my Asian peers in the magnet, but I can also relate with the other cultures that I'm part of and the cultures that I might not necessarily be part of, but I can understand how they might feel different in a certain situation, and I can relate to them in that way.
I think being mixed race and having such like rich cultures as a part of who I am and a part of my life, those have been things that I've celebrated, that I love to present to the world and to the people I love and to share with others, and it's part of myself that I really love.
Hi, my name is Rebecca, and I live in the United States. I live around Washington, D.C. in a place called Hi, my name is
Hi, my name is Anna Morgan.
My name is Martin.
Hi, my name is Lily.
Hi, my name is Lily. I'm 21 years old.
Hi, my name is Margot. I am
I guess I just want to know like who I am, why I am the way I am. Sometimes I don't know if it's describable by the way I was raised.
In 1980, the population of China was expected to spike to 3 billion by 2060. In fear of overpopulation, the Chinese government began to address such concerns by creating new family planning programs, one of the most prominent being the one-child policy. As indicative of its name, many of the country's citizens, especially those considered the ethnic majority, the Han, were prohibited from having more than one child per family. Although exemptions were granted to those of ethnic minorities, mass amounts of children, especially girls, were abandoned while the policy was enforced, in part because of China's cultural emphasis on the son's care of his family in old age. Parents fearing government punishment left little to no notes about where they could be found or who they were. This is where social media comes in.
I see that there is a willingness now for not all Chinese people, obviously, but more Chinese people to start searching. There's a lot of different reasons why the children were taken away or given up, and some of the parents have been heartbroken and searching ever since their child or baby went missing. So I think with all these DNA events that are going on in China, with the media coverage, it's opening it up to where it's more acceptable.
I just think you see more and more through social media, just people reaching out and putting something up, and something so small can really add, can really go very far. Like I said, my thing had millions of people looking at it, just a little ad about the girls and what they looked like and how old the other child might be. And to think that you can find a person that you had no idea existed 3 days before is just incredible.
The rise in social media in both the United States and China has allowed for connection within the community of adoptees to flourish. This has led to the creation of online services catered towards adoptees searching for biological relatives.
My Taproot was founded by CCAI. We're the largest China adoption agency in the world. So they put together a founding committee, and we thought, gosh, if we could put together the perfect birth parent search system, what would we do? And so we just wanted to make sure we were going into it for the adoptees to make a very transparent service. We wanted to make sure it was cost effective. And we wanted to be able to really help if we could.
So I started that with a couple of the provinces where my daughters were from. And then there was, like I said, the other parents and other adoptees who wanted to do the same. And our goal was to do one for every province in China that does international adoptions. So that's where it started. And then because of the other provinces, we decided to form a group called ICSA, International Children's Search Alliance. And now we have websites on different Chinese social networks, and we share our posters on many different social medias in China.
In an adoptee searching process, DNA testing services also play a prominent role, either for those interested in simply starting to search or those wishing to confirm a match.
We were thinking of doing the Ancestry.com to see if anything came up there. Well, I think that it's a good thing to do, because even if you're not gonna find something, you learn a lot about where you came from and what parts of China you came from. Because there's China's a big place, and there's kind of a lot of small places that you don't really know about until you do searches like this.
We're compiling a database of those birth parents. Bao, of course, has their own DNA database. And then we formed a partnership with LabCorp to really provide a way to get DNA testing done for our adoptees.
The adoptees who are finding their matches were putting found on the posters, so the birth parents who are searching know that it's a possibility to find through these posters. And DNA obviously is the ultimate goal to making sure that it is a match. But there was a birth parent who saw someone who looked like their family, and they did from the posters, and they did DNA testing, and it was confirmed.
However, with these technologies come an array of implications, such as privacy concerns and the scrutiny of the public eye.
We wanted to make sure if these kids went into this and say they found their birth parents, that there was some level of support to help them. Because what do you do next, right? It's a Pandora's box. Once you open that box, you can't close it again, for better or for worse.
My husband is a risk management and safety security consultant. He is nervous about privacy concerns with lodging the information in China. So that's one thing we're still working through. Yeah. And we opted to only do the ancestry, not the health piece of it too.
When there aren't that many of you that are like this, that you have to be prepared that whatever you do, if you do it publicly, may be, maybe looked at not positively, because there's basically nothing on the internet that everyone agrees on. But it's been, for us, like I said, a very good experience, because it has connected the girls. Not only has it allowed them to be together physically when they may not have been able to be together normally, but it's allowed them experiences that they would have never gotten to do otherwise, that have been honestly just really amazing overall. So, and I think that as time goes on, hopefully more and more people will find connections, and it would be nice at some point if China allows more connections, but I think that people are always trying, and I think there's lots of possibilities.
So it's not like it's one and done, like you don't get the report and then it's static. So as more people do the test, then more things will come up, so you never know.
Yeah.
So we'll keep waiting and watching, I guess.
My name is Ezra Town, and I am a co-founder of the Montgomery Pride Center and the current Board of Directors Chair. The mission of the Pride Center is to serve the LGBTQ community in Montgomery County. So our aim is to keep it local. Maryland Trans Unity is a support group for people on all points of the gender spectrum in Montgomery County. It's been around since 2012, so before the center was founded. I'm one of the facilitators and organizers, but we wanted to help make sure that we were able to help financially support that organization. Currently, as we're an all-volunteer board, our ability to provide resources is a lot less than I would like. But really, we're still in our infancy, and in order to go beyond that with an all-volunteer board, you have to raise money. So currently, we're fundraising on an event level, like if we need to pay for an event. We've stumbled into some generous corporate sponsors, literally from running into people in a different location. We could do a better job with fundraising, but like I said, we're all volunteers right now, so all of the money that comes to the organization is mostly from individuals or local organizations that support us, and actually the faith community. But one of the things you need to do, and this is how we've been sort of approaching the years ahead, is to get your name out there and to have people see representations of themselves. The center, through my leadership, held the first ever it's not the first ever Montgomery County Transgender Day of Remembrance, but it was the first ever put in a decent venue. So we had it at VisArt in the fall, and we had 150 people there. It was free for everyone who attended. We got exclusively trans women of color to speak from the stage and share their experiences. We gave away nearly $1,200 to the local to organizations and individuals doing trans advocacy in Montgomery County and beyond. And part of that was a donation to HIPS through a collection that we did, and other parts of that was actually paying the people who came to speak. Because so often, people who do advocacy of any kind are unpaid, and especially trans people are unpaid. So I felt it really important to make sure that people were compensated for their time. And there was also the prom, which I think was in its 5th year. There were between 70 and 100 students there. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but we also secured some big sponsors, which we were not expecting to get. We do have an event coming up on June 29th. We found some incredibly generous sponsors who were able to make sure that we can have a pride event in Montgomery County that is by and for the LGBTQ community on June 29th. That weekend is the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots in New York City. So I'm really excited about that, and that'll give us an opportunity to get our name and our new look out, and hopefully eventually lead to things like grants that will help us, A, get an actual building so we can provide space for activists and training opportunities and so on and so forth. I hope that soon we will be able to find more money from the county and from the state legislature through providing and developing programs that will help us get grants. Because one of the things that the community expressed to us is that they would like a space. That's the work that we need to do right now is programmatic. We need to do volunteer outreach so that we can spread out our resources, because right now we're a board of 6.
I like to go back to the origin of the word religion, which comes from the Latin ligare. Ligare means to bind together. So religion is that which binds us back together. And I often think about that in 2 ways. I think about the ways that we might feel just like scattered and disconnected ourselves, right? Like torn and pulled in a million places. Religion can help center us and kind of bind us back together again as whole people. And I think about the ways that we feel disconnected from each other or even from the world around us, right? We feel like there's divisions between us where, people are so different than we are. Religion can help remind us that we're part of one human family and part of the universe as a whole.
I think religion is a method of understanding things we cannot define. And I think that in many ways, religion is a template in trying to find what is beyond ourselves.
I mean, I think a lot about what they call the rise of the nuns, right? Like how many more people now identify as either explicitly secular in some way or agnostic or atheist, or maybe just not affiliated with a traditional religion. Maybe they actually believe some of those things, but they don't want to be part of those communities for whatever reason. And I do think some of that is people not wanting to be associated with traditions, religious traditions that have taken more conservative social views or acted hypocritically, acted in ways that are unsafe for children, right? Like all the things that we see in the news that religion has done that hasn't been good.
In the early 19th century, church attendance in Western Europe started sliding down very, very sharply, and people panicked. They asked themselves the following question. They said, where are people going to find morality? Where are they going to find guidance? And where are they going to find sources of consolation? And influential voices came up with one answer. They said culture. They wanted to replace scripture with culture. And that's a very plausible idea. It's also an idea that we have forgotten.
Some of the data shows that many people who identify themselves as nuns still believe in some higher power. They just don't know how to define it or have a language to define a higher power, some kind of experience of transcendence, etc. There are some interesting differences between religious traditions in terms of how religious traditions respond to individuals within their traditions questioning this concept of God. But by and large, there are certainly a small growth in those who say absolutely there's no God, but the bigger increase has been with those who say, well, this particular religious tradition perhaps can't contain or fully describe what I believe, and so I'm not choosing to affiliate with it, but I still have some religious or spiritual values.
The traditional way of church may not answer the new generation. What I think is absolutely essential is that people gather and become a community in some way.
Whether or not you like to use the word religion to describe us, we do all the same things. We have a Sunday school and we have small groups and I say something for a while on Sunday morning, you know? And so we're like at the table in the same way there. And I think we do often occupy a kind of bridge space between the more traditionally religious community and the secular community. When people see religious communities that happen in a coffee shop or that look like West, which looks pretty different, or what in whatever way feels different, I think they can have an experience of, this is a different kind of place, I can try this out. There's a lower barrier for their engagement.
We need to keep on looking at our structures and saying, is this a barrier or a door? If it's a barrier, then we've got to change that. We've got to think about how that impacts our commitment to being inclusive.
People are confronting different religions in new ways, right? So it used to be that really people didn't have a lot of contact with different religious traditions, except perhaps through stereotypes or what they read in a book. And places where there are diverse groups of people in religious traditions, like there are in the US. So that has, I think, really led to a rethinking of some of how we understand religious pluralism and kind of the academic study of religion, as well as how people, individuals, kind of what we often call lay people, think about interreligious beliefs and practices.
When I started asking questions, I thought that I had to give up my religion, because you were taught that if you don't believe these certain things, then you are not a Christian anymore. So this church, Seekers, really gave me a place to ask all kinds of questions. And I didn't have to believe a certain way.
One of my favorite psalms is when God says to David, Shiru Adonai Shir Chadash, sing me some new songs. That means partially some of the old songs that we've been singing has been harmful. Some of the old songs that we've been singing is not necessarily pleasing God anymore. Some of those old songs have polarized us, poisoned us, pumped bias and stereotype us.
Instantaneous connection, as like anything, it's a tool, and it can be a tool that connects us to each other in really deep and meaningful ways. Like, it can help us to see the nuance in religious traditions, and to see that not all Christians are the same and not all Muslims are the same, and etc. It can also give us images that then we sort of, universalize in ways that are not helpful or not fair to the much more complicated story of religion.
In America, religion is part of what divides us instead of what unites us.
The rhetoric, I think, of fear can often take over in terms of kind of defending the community from what might be perceived as conflicting values. So that can sometimes, I think, increase some, like I would say, Islamophobia, for example, or other types of fear of other religious traditions that somehow would perhaps threaten one's own.
These recent tragedies, these shootings in synagogues and whatever, have reunited faith communities in those local areas, which is a tremendous thing. But how tragic that it takes, something horrendous like that to unite people.
For better or worse, and I would tend to say for worse, is that I think there does tend to be a growing view of all religious practice as kind of a consumer good in society, so that people tend to not want to be challenged. No matter if they identify as liberal or conservative, they might not want to engage with ideas that challenge them. So in this way, again, I think there is a tendency towards sometimes a narrowing, right, of our engagement with those who think quite differently. So that's my concern, is that there'll be those who continue to do interfaith work, but there'll be other people who will retract from it.
I'm troubled, and I'm worried by the way faith is cynically used by some to serve hate, fear, racism, and greed. We need to heed the voice of the scriptures. We need to listen to the ancient chorus in which deep calls unto deep.
When society is going through these kind of big changes, religion also has to go through this kind of change as well. We're constantly trying to keep up with new scientific understandings, new social understandings, new ideas about who we are, but it's unsettling for many people. So I'm hoping that this is just a retraction that we go through, and that if we can be kind to those that are being so hateful, that maybe we can ride it out, and that it will become another round of, expansion again.
Well, I've been part of ArtStream since the beginning of it. So I'm one of the oldies,
I took my first class in 2013, and I've been somewhat involved ever since.
I immediately just loved it, so I started working the next year. I volunteered for a few years, and I just got to know everyone, and it's really like a family.
You can't bring your kids this time. But Dad, we never see you.
ArtStream is an amazing organization that works with people with intellectual and physical disabilities, and giving them opportunities to find their creative side through theater, through music, through movement.
They have classes that try to help teach social skills and stuff like that, events that just try to increase friendships in the community. And then obviously here they have the theater companies where people are really able to put their own creative show together and just try to express themselves on a big stage.
We write an original show each year based on the actors' ideas. They memorize the script, the dances, and the songs, and then we put it all on.
I enjoy the acting or the dancing, seeing all the people, interacting with everyone. It's a lot of fun, and you get to be yourself.
The whole thing is like the relationships and the friendships you develop with other members of the same group, and that's the most important part. Is to make us feel that we are a cohesive group in a friendly environment.
And it's inclusive in that they know that other people in the class will also have a cognitive disability, and sometimes physical disabilities as well, but a keen desire to be part of the class and to work with others.
It's really important because it allows them to find a creative side. Most organizations, a lot of organizations don't always cater to that population, so it's really important that ArtStream has this opportunity available for them.
In the past, a lot of actors have told me that they did high school theatrical programs, but once they age out of the high school system, there's no opportunities for them. These programs are few and far between. So ArtStream is sort of a bridging that gap. You know, as they've aged out of a high school musical program, they can come to ArtStream and do a musical program here.
Hey boss, the corporate office needs you to run an anti-stress workshop tomorrow, and it has to be perfect. No pressure.
I think just a general prejudice or stigmatism might be that people with intellectual and physical disabilities, that they might not be able to do things that other people can do, what we call quote-unquote normal people can do.
It's not just physical barriers, it's perceptions. And I think it's society, how they perceive what this person is capable of.
I definitely had a lot of those stigmas that you might think about people who have like intellectual disabilities. I didn't, partially just from a lack of knowledge, I didn't really have a lot of interactions with that community, so I didn't know a whole lot. And it's just been great to get to know the people who are here. If you go to one of these shows, you're able to see just these people are naturally very funny, they're very creative, they'll make you laugh, they'll make you cry, and just seeing that they can go around and do a normal show like everyone else, and that they can go forward and they can just produce this great product, I think helps people to see that maybe they're not so different than them after all.
So something like ArtStream and other organizations like ArtStream allow a person to be seen for what they can do and what their potential is, and that they are just like anyone else, except they just have a few more challenges.
I like to act, and that's my hobby. And I want to be a professional actress.
Don't forget his baby always at 10. Bye. Hey, you.
I like to be on stage in front of everybody, and I don't get embarrassed or shy.
All the shows I participated, and I didn't miss a single one. Not a single one, because, hey, I love my friends here at ArtStream and spending time together and all that.
There's just a lot. There's a lot going on at any given time. Shakespeare, Super Social Saturday to teach you social skills, where you will improvise things like, what happens when you go to a movie theater? How do you look the ticket taker in the eye and say, I would like a ticket for Avengers? Then what do you do when they hand you the ticket? What do you say? So you'll improvise that in a class. And it's like, oh, okay, I can get past that hurdle. I've done it in class. I can do it in real life.
I'm not afraid to stand up and speak. It helped me gain confidence, and it's easier for me to talk to people.
ArtStream It gives you a really great opportunity to interact with the greater community, to help those who might not be as privileged as you are, and to just let people be people and express themselves creatively like you might like to.
And it just gives you a different perspective on life, on your own life, on someone else's life, and what they might be going through. And just knowing that no matter what your challenges might be, that people can be successful and succeed.
This is what you do to feed your soul and to realize that you're part of something bigger.
So we just want everybody to please come and support us, you know, the actors, but as well as those behind our thing with the mentors and the director and all, I mean everybody, because we need more and more people to come, making donations. I mean, we just love to act in front of everybody.
Tacoma soccer is where friendships happen. Part of the official name of Tacoma soccer includes the word neighborhood. And that's how Tacoma soccer started, just a local place for kids to play soccer back in the 80s.
Well, Tacoma soccer, it's pretty much started when I came here from El Salvador. It pretty much started, it started my love for the sport.
There is just a emphasis on fun. Now, some players do get very serious about it.
I got to experience like the fun part of soccer and play with like a bunch of different types of people.
There's something for everyone. We do sponsor travel leagues, so if you want to be more competitive and play at a higher level, we have that too. In the rec league, it's one practice during the week and then a game on the weekend. And the fields are all within 5 miles of where we're sitting right now in Tacoma Park.
It helps, bring the community together. It also helps bring a different, different cultures together.
Well, you make friends like in the classroom, and you can, even if you're not on the same team, you can like compete with them in the field, and it makes it more fun. And like the games aren't just like soccer because there's like snack time and team bonding activities.
We play by FIFA rules starting in 4th grade, but still there's a certain tolerance for an incorrect throw at the younger ages. Either we have a do-over, but most of the time we just let the game go on, because our philosophy is it's let the kids play, it's keep the ball in play, keep the action going, don't keep whistling. We don't charge any administrative fees, so we try to make it as cheap as possible. So any player from any household, any family can play. So in the rec league, you can play whether you can pay. That's our motto. So we have a number of kids on scholarships, and it's the honor system. We don't ask for any paperwork. We don't have the time, and that's an insult to people.
For us, I was really young. I also had a younger brother at the time. Money was a problem. So the Tacoma League, it was very affordable for us.
And then with the travel leagues, we ask that the families who do have some money subsidize the families who don't have money. It costs $50, and some of it goes for insurance, the t-shirt, balls and cones, we equip each team. And some of it goes to the scholarship fund.
It's where I started, it's where I learned the basics, where I also met a lot of important people who I still know to this day. I still have communication with them.
It started my love for soccer, and it's special because it's still going on. It's been going on since before I was born, and it's still going on now. And I do the summer camp over the summer, and I get to see younger kids doing the same thing that I did, so that was fun.
When I was growing up, other adults organized leagues for me as a kid, and then I became a coach for our two kids, and then it seemed like I should give back and be an organizer after I hung up my coaching gear. It's satisfying, it's fun. It gets me outdoors more. Otherwise, I would be sitting in my office at my computer far too much.
My main goal is to play for El Salvador. That would be like a dream come true to me, to my parents, to the family, to have somebody, you know, in the family who plays for the national team.
I plan on playing soccer in college for St. Francis University, and after that, I'll see where, I guess, college soccer takes me.
It helped me stay humble because you could see all these other players. Nowadays they say, oh, I played, you know, for this top team when I was younger, and I'm like, no, I played a rec as a como.
Every sound you just heard was created by a Foley artist. A Foley artist is a professional sound effect creator for movies, TV, animation, anything else that requires.
And while you might think these sounds were just simply recorded, they were actually created in very unique ways. Here's how a Foley artist created a glass breaking sound. He filled glass vials with water and combined it with various metal objects and put them into a bag.
This should make the sound of breaking glass without actually breaking anything.
Weird, right? Or take a look at this. It's incredible how just normal household items that, when paired with the right visual cues, can sound like something else entirely. It takes years of practice and skill.
Check out how these Foley artists followed along with the movie in real time to create a live recording of an action scene.
Which is exactly what I'm gonna try it out for myself. Before I test out some Foley techniques of myself, I decided to ask a few of my peers if they could guess how certain sounds were made.
Do this. A lot of stomping, maybe.
I think they used pipes and like a stick.
I think they just did like the. maybe they just recorded a horse walking and they just used that, or is that not allowed? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cool. That literally makes no sense. I'll demonstrate. They broke a stick in half. Yeah, that sounds about right. Or maybe they did one of those clapper thingies.
Like mechanical.
Clap. Any other guesses?
Wait, can you play it again?
Yeah. Maybe they just clap twice.
It sounds like a keyboard, honestly.
A little bit. I don't know. What? I was kind of close. I feel like I know this. I think it's a car. It's a pretty well-known one. It's like when you have like the sheet of metal and then you're like that. Exactly. Maybe it's like, I feel like it's a wheel or something. Like it has the good dunk sound.
Good dunk.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
what? You take a trash can lid and you pop it. Like oh. makes sense.
That makes so much sense.
This is so depressing. Is this more celery?
Nope.
Carrots.
But the same guy used celery.
Wait, it sounds like someone just like eating food.
Chips. Maybe it's someone crushing chips.
Not chips, but like cat food.
I have no clue. Maybe.
Walnuts.
Wait, no, that doesn't sound like a walnut. No.
Nah.
Yeah. It's too like juicy.
That's so. How do you think of this stuff? I know.
Now, I want to try Foley art for myself and see if I can make some realistic sound effects. I've made a list of items to try and find, so it's off to the thrift store. I also went to the grocery store to pick up some coconuts and some celery. And a lot of the items I used today also were found around my house because we have a lot of junk. So around me I have a bunch of possible props that I'm gonna go ahead and use on camera and try to play around with the sounds a little bit and see what I can come up with. What does a rattlesnake sound like? So those were some of the more successful sound effects I was able to make. The main difference between me and a real Foley artist, besides training and experience, is that Foley artists create sound effects to match the visuals exactly. So to the viewer, the audio sounds like it was recorded on site. Plus, most Foley artists also have someone or a team to help mix and adjust the sounds so they sound more realistic. Unfortunately, I'm not that advanced in post-production, but maybe someday I'll get to make some Hollywood movie magic. Foley art got its name from Jack Foley, the creator of Foley art. He was known as the first person to synchronize sound effects with the visuals to create a more immersive experience. However, many Foley art techniques were used long before that for radio. To make the stories told on the radio more immersive and exciting, there would be dedicated people in the studio with tools meant to create sound effects during the live broadcast. If you would like to find out more about Foley art, check out the links below.
Why is it so gorgeous? My name is Mike Volpe, also known as Clams Casino. I'm a music producer, electronic music and hip-hop and a lot of other stuff. The origin story of my name is not really anything good to it or behind it, unfortunately. It kind of started as a joke, as like something that sounded funny and catchy. I wanted just something like that that would get people's attention and that people remember when they hear it. Probably most known for working with artists like A$AP Rocky, Mac Miller, The Weeknd. It's a whole lot of different types of artists. Music has always been a big part of my life. Around the house, my dad would always have instruments and things laying around and stuff that I would just pick up and play with as, you know, just see them as a normal thing growing up. I always just had access to that stuff, kind of all I knew just growing up, just messing around with stuff like that. I started playing drums when I was really young. That was the first thing I did musically. I started doing kind of production and making beat type stuff in high school. I was about 14, I think. Just always messing around with instruments and not really properly like taking lessons or anything, just trying to teach myself over the years. But I didn't really get serious about it until 12 years ago or something, when I really was trying to get a little more serious about it, getting my music out there, using the internet to do that. My first big project, I think, was when I put out a collection of instrumental versions of songs that were already released. There were songs that I've done with rappers. I had people keep asking me online, oh, will you ever put the instrumental versions of them out? And after a while, I was saying, all right, let me just do it. So I put a collection of those out, and that kind of spread around to a whole new group of people and listeners that I wasn't really even aware of. Typical day is most of the time I do a lot of stuff over email, so I'm working on music by myself in my home studio, sending music out to collaborators or other producers or artists. But I also do sessions with other producers or writers and artists. So in that case, we'll travel sometimes to work with other people. Every artist is kind of different in their own way, so some of them I've never even met and I'll just send music to online. Some of them we actually get together and work in the studio with them, and some it's a little bit of both, but depending on the type of artist they are or just what is best for them or however they like to work, I try to adjust to that. So it's, yeah, it's always different. Able to kind of make my own hours and schedule and work around, you know, raising our son and working around his hours, so it's very flexible, so that's a really good thing about it. But yeah, I do have to travel a lot sometimes, and that's tough for everybody. I'm most proud of being recognized for doing my own thing musically and being unique. I think musically is something that I always try to do, and do something different and stand out. And I'm proud that it's recognized and people know that I'm always trying to do something new or something interesting and different. So that's one of the things that I always really wanted to come across in my music, and I think that has.
You may have heard some things about 5G, the next generation of wireless technology. It promises to deliver more bandwidth, lower latency, and higher capacity. But what's the current state of 5G technology, and when can you expect it on your phone? If you listen to the wireless industry, it sounds like 5G is just around the corner, if not already here.
I think we've been on a very long journey. We're now, and you're going to hear that throughout the day, we're months away from launching 5G, and we're very excited to be able to host this event.
Actually, our test is going so well, so why wait when you have some good news for our customers? So we decided to turn it on today.
Introducing the mobile platform designed for the next generation of connectivity, the 5G-ready Qualcomm Snapdragon 855.
When I started at Verizon, I knew I was joining a team that was pushing the industry forward. Now, with the launch of the only 5G ultra-wideband network, we're doing it again. This time, changing the way we learn, work, and live.
But it's not that simple. To use any network technology, you need network infrastructure and a device capable of accessing it. 5G uses a network of small cell towers, or small cells, which have much shorter range than 4G towers. That means the carriers need a lot more of them to cover the same area that they did before. There are also ongoing conflicts between infrastructure providers and localities over things like zoning restrictions and safety concerns, which I went over in my last video. Currently, the only cities with 5G are Chicago and Minneapolis, both on Verizon. Other carriers have plans in other cities. On the device side, there are no handsets with built-in 5G currently available. There is the Moto Z3, an expandable phone with a 5G add-on. But this design makes the phone thick and heavy. A few other manufacturers, like Samsung and LG, have also announced or demoed their own 5G phones. But these devices aren't shipping yet, and they're also quite thick and bulky, in order to accommodate the large 5G antennas. As the technology evolves, we can expect the antennas to get smaller, as happened with 4G. Apple is, as always, tight-lipped about its future plans, but rumors indicate that a 5G iPhone might not be available until 2021. So to use 5G, you're probably going to have to wait a year or two minimum. This wasn't good enough for AT&T, which has been rolling out what it calls 5GE. 5GE doesn't use the 5G network at all, it's really just an improvement to 4G. Here's John Donovan, CEO of AT&T Communications, on the issue.
You decided not to go 4.5G and go 5GE.
Right. Well, we looked at a number of different options for the naming convention. 4.5, LTE Plus. Customers resonated with 5G evolution.
Sprint sued AT&T for false advertising, but the company settled in April, and AT&T continues to use the misleading term in its marketing. So to summarize, it'll be a little while before carriers and manufacturers iron out all the kinks in 5G, among them large antennas, zoning restrictions, and safety concerns. Until then, you probably shouldn't buy a 5G phone, and you shouldn't delay an upgrade because you're waiting on 5G. It'll be worth it eventually, but it's just not there yet.
DC, like any other city, is experiencing a rapid period of change. As new buildings are constructed and demographics shift, we wonder what happens to organizations deeply rooted in their local communities. This is Midtown Youth Academy, a boxing gym, education center, and one of the longest-standing businesses on 14th Street in northwestern DC. Founded in 1977 by Eugene Hughes, a boxing trainer and drug abuse counselor, the Academy aims to support struggling young people by encouraging both sportsmanship and academic diligence.
Yes, so Mr. Hughes, his mentor was Sonny Boy West. He was a boxer, a native Washingtonian, and so he started boxing because of Sonny Boy West. He boxed in the Golden Gloves and things of that nature, and he realized that it helped him let out his frustrations. So he wanted to do the same thing for the youth of DC that was done for him, basically. Be a mentor to them, be a father to those that do not have fathers, and just provide a safe haven for them. And so he and another lady put their money together and basically established Midtown Youth Academy.
With Mr. Gene, everything that he expressed to us was it's about community, it's about forging partnerships, it's about the kids most definitely, and it's about seeing success in their lives, whether it's through boxing, whether it's through education, just being an alternate outlet to the other things that kids might get involved in the inner city.
Most young men and women, they want to give it a try, whether they want to do it or not, but they want experience. Can I really box? What's this boxing world all about? And then when initially when we do the intake, when any youths come in, we ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? What significant thing can you bring to the world? And I would, sit around with him. We would do an intake with each youth and find out, what is your home problems? Find out what the issues are at home. And, and try to do everything we could to find resources for them. But whatever they need, some needed food at their house, some had abuse issues, some had gang issues.
Well, I think the educational aspect, for some kids, maybe it's an afterthought, but it was always in the forefront of Mr. Jean's mind. He would use sports and boxing to bring them in, but also the tutoring and the help with homework and, just the help with all the educational efforts. That was always in the forefront as one of the things that was most important for the kids at Midtown.
As Midtown grew, it became difficult for Mr. Hughes to run the business by himself. Across the span of the organization's 40-some years, the building it was housed in on 14th Street saw few renovations. In 1999, Kalia Jackson and Gloria Lee stepped in to assist with administrative duties. After Mr. Hughes' death in 2018, they took over as vice president and president of Midtown Youth Academy. With a deteriorating building, high costs, and little funding, they were forced to close their doors the same year. They were faced with 3 options.
He basically expressed to Gloria and I, hey, I kind of need you all's help. I really need you all to take over. Things have gotten out of hand. Out of hand meaning he knew that everything wasn't up to par as far as the business was concerned. And it was lower participation with youth and stuff like that. And that's when we pretty much started from scratch and started rebuilding everything in 2015. So we looked at a development deal, kind of like how DC is turning into that residential commercial combination. We also looked at partnering with someone where they could help us pay for the renovations and then we could coexist in the current facility. And then we looked at selling. Us researching each one and kind of looking at our options, especially financial options, brought us to selling would be the best, most feasible, and put us in the best situation financially because the building is worth a good amount of money, being, the location is 14th Street. And so if we were to move a few blocks down, we could save money, purchase a new building, put money in the bank to help with the program and get things really started for the youth of DC. Our most important goal was not staying in the current location, although it's historic and we would have loved to stay there, but our biggest goal is to help as many youth as we can, and that's the way that we saw fit to do so.
I really want to expand what we're doing, not just tutoring, not just mentorship, but actual programming where we are leading the kids on a collegiate path. That's really going to be my goal over the operations of the educational department. I want all children that want to go to college to be able to go to college. If they don't want to go to college, let's get you a skill or a trade. So I really want to sustain what Mr. Jean has done as far as making education first and expanding it as much as possible.
But I do think it'll take a while for people to adjust. But having it reopened, we're going to keep the same facade, kind of like the same look of the building, just enhance it a little bit wherever we go. So I think once people get in there and they actually feel this is Midtown Youth Academy,